Okay. So leader interventions in the working stage. So remember the initial stage, interventions are aimed at providing encouragement. So we want to encourage other, and the leader is doing more of the talking than most of the people, right? They're encouraging people to talk and all that stuff too. So the leader's in it more. And all through group, the leader should be in it less and less. So then during the transition phase, interventions demand more from the members than at the initial stage. So just like we said, the leader should be giving up more responsibility and talking and all that to in this stage. Then you get to the working stage. This involves the entire group of members and their own personal work within the group, right? So you can do your own personal work, but it's contributing to every other member as well. So as you're doing your work, you're helping others to do their work as well. Does that make sense? So as you're overcoming anxiety or whatever, you're helping others to do that too because you're modeling, oh wow, vulnerability. You're modeling these things that show that you're overcoming. So then they get the courage to overcome. See how it cascades to others. Your work can cascade to other people's. Okay. Final working stage or final stage, I'm sorry, encourage members to see how the changes practiced in this group might affect significant people in their lives. So how does the work in this group affect your life outside of here? And how are you affecting other people's lives? So you're affecting lives within your own group. How is that transferring to outside of this group? Any comments or anything? Any thoughts? Okay. So tasks during the working stage. So remember we talked about group norms and group behaviors in the past. So norms and behaviors, right? So both support and challenge to take risks in the group. Um, then you want to, during this working stage too, you want to use a variety of therapeutic interventions that you've learned. Add those. What's going to help them bring out more of themselves? And so you try new things, and maybe one works better on another person that brings out, and so that may trigger something in somebody else that brings out more. So just use more and more therapeutic interventions as you're going through. You will have more direct interactions between members. So really, the leader's being taken out, and then all of the group members, as you've seen in your own group here, they're interacting with each other and they're saying, hey, good job. They're encouraging, they're doing all of these things to help the students grow. And the leader becomes less and less and less in this part of it. Okay. So as you guys run your own groups, you should get to a point where you're doing less of the work unless it's a psychoeducational or something like that, where it's a different thing every week and you're teaching. That's a whole different story. But if it's a working type of group where you're working on something, you hand it over to them. Um, yeah. Okay. So healing capacity within the group develops, which this is a beautiful thing. Once you start feeling healing between people, it's a beautiful thing. Increased group cohesion fosters action oriented. So if you are seeing the group start being cohesive in this, you're going to start seeing other behaviors develop within the group. In individuals, you'll see different behaviors come out, good and bad, right? So there could be some behaviors that start coming out that aren't healthy behaviors if the group is not working well or in a different um, frame of mind, etc. Okay. Okay. Characteristics of working group: trust is increased, and there's a sense of safety. So remember this right here: trust is increased, There's a sense of safety, okay? Members' goals are clear and specific because they're talking more and they're saying, these are the things that I want to overcome and what I'm going to do, and so on. So their goals become more and more specific every time. Then they stop talking about the past, and then they start talking in the here and now. Like, this is what this is doing to me right now. Okay. These are the emotions I'm feeling right now. So they're getting more and more used to it. The beauty of that is if they can do that in the group, then when they do it out there in the world, then their relationships become different because they're able to talk about their emotions or something. Okay. So that's very important here and now. Members are willing to make themselves known. What's that mean? I want to open that up. What's that mean? What when members are willing to make themselves known?
Like they're actually opening up,
Hmm.
sharing about themselves.
Yeah, and even who they are as a person, right? And
Right.
their personality, and so maybe on the outside of this group, whenever they've opened up to somebody, being vulnerable, then they were made fun of, or who knows what could have happened. But now within this group, you've developed safety and cohesion and encouragement and all that stuff, and now you've got people opening up themselves um, in this environment, and that's a huge thing for some. Okay, cohesion is high. There's a sense of emotional bonding with each other, empathy, things like that. Conflict in this group is recognized and explored. Whereas maybe sometimes in the world out there that conflict may come up, but it's not explored. Um, and so you may have dismissive people or avoidant or whatever. So in a group, we want to get rid of all of that, and everybody becomes on the same page where they are contributing and recognizing and exploring the conflict within the group so they can explore it outside of the group. Mistrust is manifested by an undercurrent of unexpressed feelings. So if you're not trusting, you're not expressing that, right? And so we avoid, we dismiss, we um, put a wall up, we do all of these things to protect ourselves when there's not trust in the group. Participants focus more on others than themselves. I mean, that's an awesome thing when you start seeing people encouraging and working through situations with other people. Participants hold back and may feel distant from one another. Um, Conflicts are ignored or avoided, and communication is unclear and indirect. That's that's the characteristics of a non-working. So when your group's not working well, um, see what I'm saying? They have that unexpressed feelings. The focus is on others rather than themselves. So they're pointing fingers, right? People, and that's where people start becoming defensive. And when they're becoming defensive, what do? They wall up. Nobody talks. Okay. So that's the sign of a non-working. It's not working well. They don't feel close to one another. There's no trust. And then conflicts are ignored and avoided, and communication is unclear. So really, nobody's talking, and if it is, it's surface. It's not. You're not diving deep. There's no empathy. There's no. You're not working. It's not working. Okay. Tasks of a working stage. Choices to be made during this stage are disclosure versus anonymity. Okay. Authenticity versus guardedness. See the good versus the bad in this group. Spontaneity versus control. Acceptance versus rejection. Unity versus fragmentation. So see all these things that we're working towards on the left, and things we don't want on the right. Okay. How about homework? So maybe you guys are creating a group where there's homework within your groups that you're creating. So how valuable is homework? Well, it really depends on the group, doesn't it? Right? So the group is not an end in itself. This is the thing, like when I have a couple come in and we're working on things and maybe they're having communication problems and so on, I generally will give them homework during the week. So here's the other part is I use emotion focus therapy when I'm in the session working with them as a couple, and then I'll give them Gottman stuff, which he does. He has a lot of homework. So that's two different interventions, but they work well together. Okay. So homework is important most of the time. Okay. Group is a safe place to learn new behaviors and acquire a range of skills in living. It's a training ground for the everyday life. We've been talking about this since the very beginning. Small world, and we're getting used to it, and so we can function really well in the outside world. Homework is a means for maximizing what is learned in the group. So members can devise their own homework assignments if you want. So each week you can go, hey, okay, so what are we going to work on next week? What are you bringing to this next week, right? And it could be a scripture reference. It could be something really, really small that they bring in that means something to them. I remember, in one group I said, okay, next week, bring in a song that has had the biggest effect on you, right? Because music can drive emotion and things like that too. And so each person brought in a song that week, and that meant something to them. And then we would go through, what's that mean to you? And so in a lot of there were tears, there were happiness, there were all kinds of things. So it helped people to open up because it was a personal item. Okay. Ideally, homework is designed collaboratively between members and the leader. So it's not something just the leader goes, okay, go do this and blah, blah, blah. So it should be something that means something to them. Okay. Therapeutic factors that operate in a group. So here's some key things that when you see this in a working group, it's going well. Okay. There's self-disclosure, there's feedback, there's healthy confrontation. Okay. There's a difference there. So healthy confrontation, cohesiveness, universality, hope, willingness to risk and to trust, huge. Caring, acceptance, power, catharsis, there's the cognitive component, commitment to change is another important one, freedom to experiment. And then here's one thing you got to be careful about. When this says, hey, there's a good therapeutic factor in it, yes and no, okay? And humor, okay? Because humor could be used in a really good way to diffuse, to transition, could be used in a lot of different ways. But you have to watch when somebody's using humor in their lives. Sometimes it's a deflector. Okay. So you got to see if somebody's using humor to deflect all the time. So be careful on the humor aspect. Yeah. Okay. So when somebody wants to disclose, we kind of talked about that a little earlier. Disclosure should be related to the purposes of the group. That's very important. Okay. Related to the purposes of the group. Nothing to go outside of the group. Because that means they're running off on a rabbit trail or something like that. It should have to deal with what you're talking about in it. Okay. Because a lot of times people will disclose something and it just means they want therapy for that. And it may have nothing to do with the group. You could just derail the whole night, right? It's useful to express persistent thoughts and feelings. Useful to express persistent thoughts and feelings. Level and nature of disclosure. What's the level you want to, and what's the nature of this disclosure? Okay. Stage of group may determine what is appropriate. So if it's in the initial stage and you've got somebody just unloading on everybody else, that's going to be something that's could be a red flag, right? And it could be something they just keep unloading and unloading and unloading every week. So, you know, there's a healthy time to um, to disclose, okay? And it's not all the time, okay? So members decide what and how much to disclose. That's healthy. Self-disclosure increases in a safe group, as you know, as you guys have seen with yourself. You guys are doing a really good job of opening up to each other. Okay, so if somebody does disclose something, so we want to give them feedback. So what are the guidelines for giving feedback? Okay, we want to give feedback with honesty and sensitivity. I think that's kind of a given, right? Concise feedback given in a clear and straightforward way is useful. Say, hey, when I noticed this, then this. I'm just giving them one sentence or whatever. And you're just doing it straightforward. You're not beating around the bush, because if you start beating around the bush, they're going to go, okay, what? Then trust starts diminishing, right? Because they're going, okay, they're hiding something, whatever. Okay. So in giving feedback, let others know how their behavior affects you, but avoid being judgmental. And then avoid giving global feedback. Okay. Next, catharsis. Catharsis is the expression of pent-up emotions. So it can be healing and lead to increased cohesion, and it's not appropriate for all types of groups, okay? It's not appropriate for all types of groups. So after an event happens that is somebody's expressed up huge pent-up emotions, it's useful to integrate cognitive and behavioral work. What did they think about that? What were some of the behaviors, things like that too. Insights are common, and it is crucial to point out insights and put those insights into action. So when you thought of this stuff, how can we put those things that are healthy into action? It's crucial. Co-leader issues during this working stage, very important here, right? So between group sessions, you should be discussing reactions to group members. How are we reacting to them? How are they reacting to each other? So you're just debriefing between sessions. So you should be thinking of ways of involving various members in the transactions with one another, right? So how do we get each other involved? So if you have a group and you guys are here together and you have somebody that's not contributing, that could diminish the effectiveness of the group just by one person not contributing, right? And so that's up to the leaders to get everybody to contribute. Okay. Explore ways of helping participants and understand their behavior in the group and resolve some of their conflict. Okay. Engage in ongoing evaluation of the group and of your own performance as a co-leader. How am I doing as a co-leader? So how am I helping the group as a whole? How am I helping the leader? How am I watching? How am I contributing to understanding what the dynamics are outside of what the leader's doing? And discuss any issues related to theoretical orientations and styles, techniques, self-disclosures. So this is the part where the co-leader can say, hey, I've used this in groups before, maybe this would work, and just contributing ideas to one another. This is the perfect time for leaders and co-leaders to learn more about the group process from each other. So the members' functions in this group, so they bring group sessions issues that they're willing to discuss, right? They bring into the group sessions issues that they're willing to discuss. So they don't bring it in if they're not willing to discuss it. Okay. Offer feedback and remain open to feedback. Very important. Practice new skills and behaviors in your daily life, and then come back and let everybody know how it worked. Well, so that's what you guys are doing with each other, the accountability piece. You're practicing new skills for your daily lives, and you're bringing it back saying, this is what I did this week, and you're being held accountable for it by somebody else in your group. And maybe it's even somebody in your group, but you guys are holding each other accountable outside of the group. Very important. So members should be willing to take risks and continuously assess their satisfaction with the group, because they should be giving feedback to the leaders of the group, saying, constructive feedback, not just complain. Okay. Leader functions during this stage, they continue to model appropriate behavior. Always, always, always remember that. So they continue to model appropriate behavior, even when there's conflict. They've got everything under control, and the way they speak, all of those things. Okay. They interpret the meaning. Support members' willingness to take risks and assist them in carrying out these in their daily lives. Then they interpret the meaning of behavior patterns at appropriate times to help members engage in deeper self-exploration. So that's where the counseling begins, is when you're helping them to discover new behavior patterns in their life. And so then we go into the why, explore common themes that provide for some universality, focus on the importance of translating insight into action, and then promote behaviors that will increase the level of cohesion. How do we get everybody to interact better, more, all of those things, encourage each other? It's just like these groups are just like marriages and things, like being a best friend and stuff like that. How do you promote being a best friend with somebody, right? It's all about encouraging and being authentic, genuine, all of those things. Okay, so let's see what time it is. It's we blew through that one pretty quick. So this is a video that shows group, but we're not going to go through that. I'm going to go into. So anybody have any questions, thoughts? I want to go through some thoughts of the working stage.
Can you go back to the last slide? I didn't get all of the list.
This one here? Okay. And these are out on your files too. All these presentations are out for your files that you can have.
I have a question. So if it's been like a couple weeks within a group and the group just doesn't seem to get to the working stage, what would be like an appropriate action to take place then?
Yeah, I think that, as a leader and a co-leader, you want to recognize the reasons why that it's not happening, and it could be just the dynamics between each other. So maybe there's some interventions you bring in that help people to open up, help people to do communication. Maybe it even breaks down to communication, and maybe do an intervention like active listening, where one person talks, and you may break them into twos, and work through those things, and help people to develop bonds. And maybe there's these two together, and then maybe you split them apart and go together, and so you're getting more and more people to talk to each other individually. Yeah, I was in a group one time where they never got to the working stage, and it's because it was just so but we only had I can't remember, 6 weeks in the class to do it. And they just didn't like each other. I mean, it was, and they were never going to get to it. They just did not like, each other in this group. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is gonna be a long 6 weeks. I mean, but we would try, and this is the time, where you just try and try and try, and maybe it doesn't work in this group. But maybe there's some things that do work that you can move to another group. But I think it's really comes with just running groups and understanding what makes people talk to each other and work with each other and things like that too. Yeah. I mean, there's always that part that you may never get to the working stage, and it's not fun for you, but it's a learning experience for you and them both, and it tells a lot about them, you know. So, and maybe that's the thing that you can do also is it's a counseling moment saying, hey, this is a world. This is a picture, a snapshot of the world here. What's going on, and why, if you're having problems, and so maybe you do talk about stuff that are outside. What are some of the family issues, and maybe that brings up something where, yeah, I'm having the same problem, things like that too. Does that help? Yeah, yeah, that's tough. If you
I have,
go ahead,
I was gonna say, I have a question, if
yeah,
you're finished.
yeah, go for it.
You said in the working stage that you usually use a couple of techniques. Is that pretty common, or can you just use one, or is it always wise to use more than one?
Well, that's kind of, to me, that's like it kind of depends on the group and things like that too. So, you know, some groups will have to use a lot of different ones, and some groups won't have to use any. They just start talking about something, right? So I think it just depends on what the subject is too. Does that make sense? So if it's like everybody's in for anxiety or something like that, well, some of the interventions can be, okay, we're going to talk about mindfulness, meaning what are some coping skills? And maybe that's all you need to bring in, because maybe it's the group is called anxiety and coping skills, right? So you're only going to bring in coping skills. And how does that work? But what if it's something like, I don't know, think of something where you would need multiple interventions, because it's wide open. Does that make sense? Like okay, I got a good example. What about marriage counseling? So group marriage counseling, you will probably introduce a lot of different interventions into the counseling. So the reason is because you're giving them more and more tools that they can use outside of the sessions. Does that help?
Yes.
Good. All right. Anybody else? Okay, let me open up the other one. I just love it. This one says we're getting to the end. Oh, you probably can't see it yet. Can you see it? Can you guys see this screen?
No.
Okay, hang on a second. Okay, there we go. The final stage. How's it feel, guys? I love it. Okay, so we'll just go through this as a final stage. And this is when you're getting to the end and you're getting ready to terminate. And hopefully you've had a robust and awesome working stage, and now you're getting to the end of the line for this. And what types of dynamics do you think will happen during this? Let me open that up to you guys real quick. So what type of dynamics do you think will happen in the final stage? Maybe it's the final day that you guys are meeting. What's going to happen? What do you
Uh,
hope to happen?
I was gonna say, I would think that there would be kind of a bittersweetness of, all that's accomplished, but you've formed this bond with this group of people. And it's like saying goodbye in a sense.
Yeah. Think about your guys' own lives. What about every class that you guys attend to get together? And you get to know each other and you talk and all that stuff too. What's it like to have the last night of class?
Or you're gonna miss some that were in the class because the next class you go to, they might not be in it. So you're gonna miss them. You're gonna miss being and talking with them.
Yeah, you know what? So here's another thing is, so I went through, oh my gosh, I went through this class for it's Masters of Counseling and I went through it at Mid-American Nazarene. And so we had a group of people and we all became really, really close because we were together for 2 years every week, once, twice a week. Okay. And we did homework together, we practiced tests together and all this stuff too. So you create these bonds. And so some of the people that I was with and I was so close to them that, having this bond with them, I'm still friends with them today. But a lot of them I'm not, and so that's kind of the thing, life happens and you just kind of move on and stuff. But it'll always be with you. Guaranteed. These moments right here, this group class will always be with you in some way or another. Okay. So just remember those things that people are experiencing and help them to look through that and carry it and be happy with it. Things like that too. And what other things can happen?
Depending on the group, there might be like fear of just being done and working on things, maybe in that kind of in safer environment than the real world.
Yeah. Have you ever had experienced that before?
Yes, probably helping skills and then, having to execute it in the real, with the
Oh,
client.
you know what, Tara? That's beautiful because helping skills is that way because you guys get so close in that class, especially when you divide and pair up and things like that too. And I'm telling you, sometimes people really get into some stuff that matters, and it's not just practice or anything, it becomes real. And so Tara, yeah, just like you were saying, you'll carry those things for the rest of your life. Yeah. That's good. Thank you. Anybody else?
I was gonna say, in my experience, like when you go to an army school, there's always one or two guys that you would, we exchange contact information and arrange to meet later on, or start to plan our next class so that we're in the same class, things like that. So we like make connections outside of the group.
Yeah. So Charlie, tell me about like some connections that you've made that are still going
Well,
on.
well, there's like three different guys who I kept running into in the different schools that we're still friends today. We've still meet up occasionally and kind of have like almost little like mini reunions. But I would assume it'd be like that with any class, at least possible.
Yeah, what do you talk about?
Actually, a lot of it is not even have anything to do with that class. And
Yeah,
we talk about like where our families are now and
yeah.
what's going on with our lives in general. Catch up just like you would any friend.
So isn't that the beauty of it though? So you guys are talking about real life stuff and not just, hey, this is what we learned in the class, right? Because you bonded
Right.
in a whole different way. And that's what these groups are about too. And hopefully you guys are thinking about that in your groups that you're creating is how do we create a group in such a special way that it does affect them for the rest of their lives and they're going to carry what they've learned in this. Just like you, Charlie, establishing those friendships with those people, how meaningful that is, um, and even if one of those persons encouraged you, and they don't even have to be with you, and they're still encouraging.
Right. And they all have, their own unique uh perspective that, we learned enough about each other. We shared knowledge about each other to where if I got a particular issue, I know I can go to Platt, or another issue, I might go to Franklin. So just things like that, you know each other on a more personal level that have anything to do with what we originally were put together for. So
Yes.
it's interesting how that happened. And the more these particular guys were like the guys that, I realized, hey, this is like the third time I've run into you at this school. So,
Yeah.
or different schools, And
Yeah.
when I say schools, Army, you go to different schools for different training and different leadership levels and different, specialties that they send you to. So it's not like we're all just running in the same circles, going from like first grade to second grade to third grade. I
Yeah.
mean, these are from all over the country type thing. It's a pretty special environment.
Yeah. That's so good. So I was reminded of a story so like you guys right here, you're in your group and um, you're creating these special bonds with each other and all that stuff, and you're learning more and more about each other. And so even outside of the group, it's kind of an unspoken thing that something about those people, right? And you don't even have to say anything to each other because you've been through something together. Um, so anyway, it's such a thing, if you're in a group that you carry that stuff with you for the rest of your life. So it's a beautiful thing. Anybody else? Okay. So let's get into this last one. Okay. Here's some questions that we were doing so before. What kind of experiences have you ended in your life? Just think about those types of things. What kind of experiences have you ended in your life? What kind of effect did that have? How did those endings go? It's sad in that moment, it really is sad, but you know what? It's funny, you go on and it's like you carry those memories and maybe it's not so sad later, but in that moment, it could be really sad and devastating. So we have to understand those dynamics. How about you? Are you a good ender? What's your ending look like? Me, I'm telling you, like this class I had, it ended, and I'm like, I got my diploma and I'm out. It's like I'm not even looking back to what it was. Now I'm carrying memories with me, but I'm not, kind of dwelling on any of that stuff or whatever. I'm like, what's next? What's next? What's next? So I do think it kind of just goes on to the personality of the people too. Some people they do want to uh, hold tight to past relationships and things like that too. So I just think it really kind of depends on the personality of the person. What do you think are good ways to end experiences? Let me open that up to you guys. What do you think are good ways to end experiences?
I think it depends on what kind of experience it is.
Let's see it. Yeah, absolutely. How about how about your group that you're creating? So you don't have to go into what type of group you're, but what would be a good way to for people to end? And maybe it's so I did a marriage class, and we had about 20 couples in it. And so when it was over, you know, I kind of said this is a graduation, and so we went to I rented a room or whatever, or reserved a room at a place, and we had this just dinner, right, with each other, and that was the way that we ended that. And it was a good experience because it felt like a graduation. So, you know, people bonded with each other and all that stuff too, but it was probably, you know, the type of class where they weren't, you know, just remain friends for the rest of their lives or anything like that. So we just had a celebration, one big celebration. So, but there may be other groups that you created, like Charlie is talking about, where, you know, you'll be lifelong friends. So what does that look like? How do you end things that way? Like if you have a cohort of people like I did at school, you know, they had one person who was good at organizing things, and they collected everybody's names and email addresses and phone numbers, and then they would send something out. Let's get together, you know, once every 6 months or a year or whatever for the rest of our lives, or you know, whatever. So maybe that's a way you end it, is knowing that there's something to look forward to. I don't know. What do you guys think?
I don't know, maybe because of the experiences I've had in the past, as being a first lady, my mind goes to at the end of that group session, maybe giving, even if it's just a little gift bag or something, to say thank you for being in the group. So that's where my mind would go towards.
Yeah, that's part of your personality, isn't it? Right?
Yes.
So yes, and so that makes a big difference too, is that, you know, some groups are going to end in the way that it's like the personality of the person that is the leader. Right. So that's good. Yeah, I love that. I bet your groups are fun.
Something that regeneration that we have at Abundant Life, once a group completes their 10 months roughly, then they do like a celebration at the end. And that's kind of a way that they celebrate all the participants with family and friends that were with the participants through the process, but also just, yeah, kind of celebrate, you know, their progress and kind of moving on.
Let's see, you know, Lauren, I mean, that is such a great example. You know, having that celebration, because these people have worked very hard, and you know, you said 10 to 12 months generally, and they've worked very hard to get to where they're at. And I love how that regeneration does it, and they celebrate it, and they have people speak on like, this is what I went through, and just so that it shows, even they invite people from outside in to celebrate with them, and then they can see, hey, there's these people did a lot of work to get to this. It's not just something where you come and you um, listen to each other talk. It's like there's really real work going on. So yeah, that's a good way, is having a good celebration like that.
I think I am not a good ender because I think when I say it depends on the group, I'm part of this Bible study that goes on for 12 years now.
Hmm.
And so um I don't know, I'm part of a different Bible study in the past and currently too, but like this group, my husband and um I don't know, we've been part of this group for 12 years and we've raised kids, and just thinking of that group, like
Mhm.
part ways. I guess when I say like depends on the group, because like there's roots there already, and
Yeah,
we've grown together, raised kids together. So just
yeah.
thinking of that specific group, it's like, I don't know.
I hope that one never ends for you.
Yes, I think we're gonna start a book club.
That's a great. I love that. I hope
Yeah.
that one never ends for you.
Yes.
There
Yeah.
are some groups that shouldn't end.
Mhm.
So just like, so like your Bible study group, I hope that one never ends. The good thing about what Lauren was talking about, it's a good thing that there is an ending because it just shows, hey, I've accomplished this work, but the work's not over with. It just means that I accomplished or I'm celebrating what I learned about myself and now I'm applying it in my life. So, and a lot of those people at Regeneration become leaders too. So, and so they do give back after what they've learned. Yeah, great. I love those. I love all those experiences that you guys talking about. Okay. Okay, the final stage of group is vital. Members have an opportunity to do these things, probably a lot that we just talked about. Clarify and integrate the meaning of their experiences in the group. So it's good to have a night of celebration or whatever it is where you can have closure. This is a big word, okay? Have closure. Doesn't mean and everything has to end, but it just means that that period of that group is closing and you have closure. Consolidate the gains that have been made. That'd be maybe even something that you, as a leader, you go to a whiteboard and write up, go around the room and say, what have you accomplished? Let's make a list of all the good things that you could have it. So it shows where, okay, this person did this and this and then this, and a lot of people have accomplished new things in this group. And then you celebrate it, okay? Decide what newly acquired behaviors and changes they are committed to bringing to their everyday lives. So see what it says they're committed. So have people, and this would be another thing where you guys are talking about accountability. And that doesn't mean this group has to end, and they could have accountability partners afterwards, to help each other. Okay. So some characteristics of this group. Possible sadness and anxiety over the reality that we're separating. Yeah, of course. I hope there is sadness. Hope there is anxiety over separating. Healthy anxiety, of course, especially if it's an anxiety class. We don't want unhealthy anxiety. Okay, so they may. Oh, here's some things of a characteristic. So they may pull back and participate less because some people are just maybe not good at goodbyes. They don't like closure. There's fear, and this has probably come up. Yep, there's expressed fears. So fear of not having this group as something that I can and get encouragement from or ask questions of or things like that too. So should be a lot of fear in that aspect too. And then where people have overcome fear, so a lot of celebration in that. So members are hesitant on course of action. So really you think of it this way, theoretically we know what we're supposed to do, but maybe we haven't applied it yet. So we don't know the exact all the steps that we need to take in something. So there may be hesitant because I know it on paper but I don't know it in real life yet. Okay, so there's some fear of separation as well as continued progress in the daily life. Expressed fears, hopes, concerns for one another. That's a big one. Role playing to meet significant others in everyday life. Group evaluate. Oh, so these are things that you'll be doing too. Group evaluations, discussion. So this would be one thing as a leader you guys want to do is have evaluations of the group, of the leader, of the co-leader, of each, maybe not so much each other, but really overall, what were the dynamics of the group? Not, independently of each other, but what were the dynamics? And then the discussion of follow-up for accountability, just like kind of what we talked about. Maybe they pair off and they do have accountability partners or whatever it is, depending on what the group is. And it could be like yours, Evangeline, where people, you have accountability for people to memorize maybe one piece of scripture a week or a month or whatever it is in your Bible study. Tasks of the final stage of group. So in an open group, here are the tasks. So in an open group, you want to educate members to give adequate notice when terminating. So just like we did tonight when the class started, I go, okay, we have tonight our group is ending, but we have this next week, and this is what we're going to be doing next week, and then we're done. Okay. So we're educating members on what it looks like. Why are we doing that? So we're doing that so they can get a good snapshot or a picture of, hey, this is ending. I got to prepare. So then you want to allow time for members to prepare emotionally. That's why you're giving them what it looks like at the end. You want to give an opportunity for members to say goodbye to each other. And you'll have some people like me that says, I'm out. Or you may have people that linger. So you want to give them the opportunities to be able to do that, to have that closure. Okay. Explore cultural influences on members' perceptions and understandings of endings. What's it mean to each person individually to have this group end? What's your perception? And maybe culturally, some cultures, they don't have endings to something. They just have so long for now type things or whatever. And maybe they don't celebrate. What's the culture? What's the culture we want to establish in the group? So tasks of the final stage continued, right? We want to help members to identify how they can incorporate what was meaningful in the group into their daily lives. So this is one of the most important things right here. How are you applying what you learned to your daily activities? So this is where it goes from paper to real life, okay? We want to assist the member to review what has been learned in the group and what they want to do and what to do with this learning that they've had. So that's the same thing. And here's something maybe we didn't talk about before, but make referrals when appropriate. So if it's an anxiety group and we're ending and there's nobody there to contact, who do we refer them to if they need immediate help? Well, we want to give them a counseling group or a counselor's number or whatever, some form of referral of help to them so they're not left alone. Okay, so terminating a group in a closed group. So remember, we just did open and now we're doing closed. So tasks was dealing with the final stage, and the closed group is dealing with the feelings of separation. So you remember, okay, so let me go back to the open. So the open group is where you had people come, you could have people come and go in it. Remember that, okay? So you'll have some people graduating, some people not. So just like regeneration, Lauren, right? So you'll have some people who aren't done yet, and you'll have some people graduating and they're done. So then it's not the other person's time yet, okay? So those are open groups where people come and go, okay? So closed groups, now we're going to talk about like your class here. This is a closed group. So dealing with feelings of separation, compare early and later perceptions of the group. What did you think about the group when you first started? What were the dynamics of that? And now, what's your perception of this group? How did your view of this group change? How did you grow? All of that. Here's the other one, dealing with unfinished business. What's that mean? I want to open that up to you guys. What's it mean when you're going to be dealing with unfinished business?
Is that dealing with things that happened or affected you in the past that is still maybe affecting you at the present moment?
Yeah. So what if you're in a group and you have something like, okay, so you have 8 people in the group and everybody was working through something and 7 of them got to the end and they go, oh, this group was awesome. I got all the tools I need to handle what I've got. But what if there's one person in there and they're like going, man, I'm only halfway through with what this trauma that I've been dealing with or whatever it is. So they've got some unfinished business to take care of in this situation. So how do we help them do that? And generally that's, maybe through a referral, or maybe they next time the group starts, they need to redo the group again. I've had people go through grief share 2 or 3 times because they still needed to process through the group, even though they knew what was going on in the group, and they'd already done the homework and all that stuff too. They still had some unfinished business to take care of in their group. Okay, so personal gestures and expressing the meaning of the group experience. How does each person, maybe you go around the room with them and have them express what the group meant to them. Reviewing the group experience. So that overall, you as a leader, you reviewed, here's what we did week 1, week 2, week 3, and this is what came out of it. And then maybe you had have a person or two share what they got out of each week. So termination of the group. Oh, so we're still in the termination of the closed group, okay? So you want to work with them to practice behavioral change. How do we want them to be different? How do we want them to act differently? Carrying learning further. So you want to give them avenues of taking what they're learning here and keep learning more to apply to their lives, okay? Here's an important one here, giving and receiving feedback. Show them where they've been on giving and receiving feedback, where they're at now, where they can be, things like that. So you want to go through how they experienced feedback and how they're experiencing it. Somebody gave you feedback. At first, I saw that you were defensive or you didn't like getting feedback from others. And now I see that you take feedback and you take it inside and you deal with it and you change your behavior patterns. Use of a contract and homework, you can give them homework afterwards. So they're kind of their choice if they want to do it or not, right? But you can give them homework. How to deal with setbacks if they ever have setbacks, and that's where coping mechanisms can come into play if it's a trauma or anxiety or depression or whatever. How they deal with setbacks because everything we do is not linear. It's kind of up and down, hills and valleys, could be circular, things like that. And then guidelines for applying group learning to their life. How do you apply what you've learned to your life? Okay, so we talked about giving and receiving feedback a little bit. The sentence completion method. The sentence completion method can enhance the quality of feedback and can result in focused feedback. So here's an example, right? So, and this is in the final stages, right? So my greatest fear for you is, and this is where you have them maybe complete that sentence. So my hope for you is, or you can complete it. I hope that you will seriously consider, I hope you, I see you blocking your strengths by, so you're giving them feedback that they can use. Okay. Some ways I hope you be different with others are. And so what having them see what they've learned in this, and this is what I'm hoping you've learned from this and how you can apply what you've learned to your life. So how do they apply lessons to their everyday lives? So assist the members in in translating what was learned in the group to their lives and developing action plans. So if it's anxiety and they learned a lot of coping skills, how does that translate into areas of their life? Like, I was doing supervision with somebody, and there was a person that has anxiety over driving a car, right? So I said, well, here's what you do. You do this thing called systematic desensitization. So what that is you kind of sit down with them and you go through step by step them getting into their car, starting the car, putting in reverse, putting it in drive. So you're going through every step, and you're also going through them. What's the anxiety that's associated with that? So we've learned coping skills. And so I help them to apply those coping skills to every step of the way of driving this car. Okay. So that's how you're assisting them to take what's been on paper that they've learned and apply it to their life. And then when they go out, and so you do this desensitization, reprocessing, whatever, and then you go into actually doing it. And maybe you're sitting in the car with them and you're watching them and helping them to do those coping skills. That's just kind of an example. Inform members that relapses do occur, kind of like AA, right? You got people in there and they give them these coins every year. Well, some people have started over with them coins many, many times, probably, right? So there are relapses. So you want to prepare them to be able to cope with those relapses or any other unexpected outcomes. Some points to share with members as you're closing. A group is a means to an end. Change is bound to be slow and subtle. Focus more on changing yourself than on changing others. Such an important part. Because here's what, you can't change others, right? That's trying to control. You can't change others, right? So that's the first thing when I have a couple that comes in, I'm like, who do you want to change? And they do this. They point at each other. I'm like, well, who can you change? Well, you can't change them. All you can do is change yourself. Decide what you will do with what you learned about yourself. That's powerful. What did you learn about yourself? How can you apply not only to here, but to other areas of your life? Okay. So for you as a leader, these are the important things. You want to evaluate the group experience, right? So evaluation is a basic aspect of any group experience. You want to evaluate either by questionnaire, surveys, focus groups, interviews. You want to evaluate their progress, the progress of the group, and so on. How did the group run? All those things. Evaluation is an ongoing process that tracks the progress of the individual members and the group as a whole. So you can do evaluations at the beginning. So say it's an anxiety group. How do you cope? What's your anxiety level? And they say, oh, my anxiety level is 9. Okay. So middle of the 8 weeks, so 4 weeks after they've learned how to do coping skills, something like that, maybe you give them another evaluation and their anxiety's at a 5 instead of a 9. Okay. So then you give them the same thing at the end. So where's your coping at now? And what level is your anxiety at? Well, it's at a 2 or a 1. Perfect. That's awesome. So you're heading in the right direction. So then methods used include rating scales, standardized instruments, questionnaires, follow-up interviews, and so on. So when you guys do your research, if you haven't had your research group class and all that stuff too, you'll learn about all these instruments and everything like that. I'm writing my paper right now, and I have to include a bunch of these instruments in my paper. So it's fun. Co-leader issues at the end of the group. So agree not to bring up new issues, right? Why do we do that? Why do we agree not to bring up new issues? Well, the biggest reason is we're closing, right? So we don't want to bring up something that's going to open up a whole thing and leave them with unfinished business at, when they leave the area, and then we're not there for them the next week. So we don't want to bring up anything new. We're just closing the old. Discuss unfinished business. Discuss feelings about ending the group. Okay. Help members to review and evaluate their experience. Critically assess the balance of responsibility and how you work together as co-leaders. Very important. How did you work together with each other? How can it be better? And you may decide, hey, we don't work well together at all. So I probably won't do this group with you ever again. Whatever. And that's not a bad thing. It's okay. Or you, as a leader, you go, you know what? You did such a good job. You should have your, and you help them establish their own group. Follow up, you want to build follow-up group sessions into the schedule if needed, as needed. Members tend to be more motivated when knowing they will evaluate their progress. So nobody wants to be a failure or anything too. So if they start at a 1 in something and they want to be a 10, what are they going to do? They're going to work hard in that time to go from 1 to 10 if they know that they're going to be evaluated at. Members can share difficulties they have encountered since leaving the group, and that could be in individual counseling, or you can set something up where you say, hey, 3 months from now, I'm going to call you. 6 months from now, I'm going to call you and check in. Provide avenues to express their thoughts, send a brief questionnaire, or contact the members, and so on afterwards. So member functions. So they want to deal with feelings about the separation and the termination. You want to help them deal with those feelings. You want to prepare to generalize learning to everyday life. How do we take what we learn? I know I go over this over and over again, but that's the most important part, is how do we take what we've learned and apply it? And you're helping them to do that. Complete unfinished business, and then evaluate the impact of the group, and remember that change takes time, effort, and practice. So that's an important thing, is, okay, you say to them, you were only in an 8-week group, and this is going to be a lifetime of things that you're going to experience. So don't expect stuff to happen overnight, Leader functions. Assist members in dealing with any feelings, provide members with an opportunity to deal with their unfinished business, work with members to develop specific contracts and homework assignments. These are things that we kind of went through just a little bit ago. But this is for the leader. Give them time to say goodbye to each other, have that unfinished business. If given a reminder a few sessions before the final meeting, members can be motivated to use that remaining time to complete their work. So if they know time is short, maybe they'll work harder to finish that. So they won't have unfinished business. So that may motivate them, saying, I want to get this, whatever it is, taken care of, because I don't want this hanging over my head. If this were the last session, think about this. How would you feel about what you have done? And what would you wish you had done differently? Just think about that in your groups, okay? Okay, so let's do this. It is 7:21. Let's come back here at 7:30. And we'll get started on group, okay? All right, see you at 7:30.